Merhabalar. Evet, oturumumuzun adı Gıda Sistemlerinde Değişime Küresel Bakış. Bugün sürdürülebilir ve herkese yeten sağlıklı bir gıda tüketimi için radikal bir değişime ihtiyacımız olduğu kaçınılmaz. Yaklaşık 3 milyar insanın kötü beslendiği ve iklim değişikliği gibi küresel sorunların giderek derinleştiği bir dünyada 10 milyar insanı sağlıklı bir biçimde beslemek önümüzdeki süreçte gerçekten gıda üretiminde çok radikal bir değişimi beraberinde getiriyor. Bu konuda çok değerli bir konuğumuz var. Europe Food and Drink Genel Müdürü Mella Frewen. Mrs. Frewen, we are happy to have you in this session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So I would like to start with the European Union climate neutral zero target for 2050. So the political agenda that is to shape the transformation of the food system is here. And the European Green Deal has a very important farm to fork strategy that will defend the biodiversity of the nature. And Food Drink Europe represents Europe's largest manufacturing industry. So what should be, according to you, the major steps to build a sustainable food system in the coming years?
So good morning, everyone. So my name is Mella Frewen. I'm Director General for Food Drink Europe. So what is the European food and drink industry all about? It's the largest manufacturing industry in the European Union. It has a turnover of some 1.2 billion euros, and it provides almost 5 million jobs directly to European citizens. It's a very important sector, especially if you take the up and down stream employment and value added created into account as well. That is from the farms all the way down through transport, through storage, processing to the retail sector. External trade is very important for us as well. We have a very positive trade balance. It's approximately 36 billion at the moment. It was larger last year, but then COVID, I think, has taken its toll on all of us. By the way, I will send these slides to the organizers, so if anyone wants them afterwards, they are welcome to have them. So in Food Drink Europe, we represent, as I mentioned, the European food and drink industry. It's all of the national federations from the member states and other European countries. We also represent all of the interests of the sector associations. These are, let's say, the dairy sector or the meat sector, the chocolate biscuits and confectionery sector, etc., etc. So we have 27 of those, and we have 23 direct company members, and these of course include the Yildiz group, the company Ülker. So we're very pleased to have a Turkish member amongst our members. We know that sustainability, we really have to do things more sustainably, the way we produce foods, the way we consume foods. One of the definitions I like best of sustainability is meeting our own needs while compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Because natural environmental resources, of course, are very important, but resilient social and economic resources are also key to sustainability. People are able, in a world which is sustainable, people are able to meet their own economic needs, to have access to jobs and other economic activities, and they can enjoy comfortable livelihoods. So the context is very challenging. The challenges we face are very numerous, and of course, these are no longer a secret for anyone. Population growth is estimated to reach up to 9.7 billion by 2050. This will drive up the demand for food. In turn, this will increase the demand on natural resources, on water, on arable land, on soil, etc., etc. The demand for food is estimated to increase by close to 50% of the demand we see today. And this will need 15% more arable land to produce, and 28% increase in crop yields globally, things like corn, like wheat, like oilseeds, etc. Moreover, globally, we are facing increasing problems of aging populations. The chart on the left here shows the number of persons in the EU aged 65 and over in comparison to those aged between 50.
Ms. Frewen, sorry, we can't see the presentation. It's at the first page still.
It's still at the first page.
Yes.
I'm clicking over my slides, which is, but apparently it's not working. Okay, well, look, you know what? I will just continue. The presentation.
Yeah, of course. You'll send us for those who, okay.
It will be made available. So,
of course.
Yeah, very good. So, population growth is a problem, and problems of aging populations and indeed youth employment are also problems. So these are some of the challenges. But perhaps one of the greatest challenges is climate change. The world has been getting warmer, and the average temperature of the Earth generally is about 15 degrees, but of course this fluctuates over time. And recently scientists are saying that the average temperatures are rising now much, much faster than any time before. The 20 warmest years on record have occurred in the last 22 years. So a huge problem with climate change. Rising temperatures of even a small magnitude, so 0.5 degrees centigrade, for example, already this can have a huge impact on the world we live in, causing sea levels to rise, causing increasing acidity in the atmosphere. And this, of course, can have a devastating effect on crop production and resulting in extreme weather conditions globally. And biodiversity and natural forests are also being threatened by rising temperatures. In the EU, the possible impacts of climate change on agriculture and food production will most likely be particularly damaging in the south part, where there will be water shortages, droughts, soil erosion, shorter growing seasons, and reduced crop yields. But climate stress of various intensities will be prevalent throughout Europe, causing droughts, causing floods, storms, soil erosion, increasing infestations of pests and plant and animal diseases, etc. The list is long. We also have a problem, of course, of global, it's a global problem of malnutrition and overweight. So in the world where we have this double burden, overweight and obesity on the one hand, and starvation and malnutrition on the other, 1/3 of all food produced is wasted. So it really is unthinkable that more than 800 million people go to bed hungry every night, yet 1 out of every 6 people in the world is obese. So we really have to get our acts together and do more to make what we're doing more sustainable. There are other challenges like urbanization, migration, social unrest, not to mention pandemics, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. And these must be addressed today by governments, by academics, by health authorities, but also by us industries and, of course, us citizens throughout Europe and the world. The digital economy will also be a challenge. It already is a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity for our businesses. Consumers in our part of the world are becoming ever more demanding. So food manufacturing will play an important role in the transition to sustainable food systems. All of this, of course, was noted by the United Nations in particular. In fact, efforts to improve living conditions for citizens all over the world and a particular focus on the prevention of climate change have been made throughout the last 3 to 4 decades. In fact, the first World Climate Conference was held in 1979 already. But I think none of these efforts has been quite as remarkable as the United Nations push for sustainable development, when in 2015 it published its Sustainable Development Goals. Now, these are a series of 17 objectives that aim to make the world a better place for all people everywhere. And in its introduction to the SDGs, the United Nations said, we can be the first generation to succeed in ending poverty, just as we may be the last generation to have a chance of saving the planet. So that's a direct quote from the United Nations, and it's quite a pertinent one. This is urgent. From ending hunger and poverty to improving nutrition, from promoting sustainable agriculture, combating climate change and biodiversity loss, to ensuring quality education for all, for example, the SDGs are very, very broad in their objectives, and they're hugely ambitious, and their aim is to achieve all of these goals by 2030. So this is really urgent. So what the European Union has stepped up as well to this challenge. and it has vowed, as you mentioned, to become climate neutral by 2050. So how do we do this? Of course, it's a very ambitious goal, and in order to reach it, the Commission has laid out its Green Deal. With the Green Deal, the EU aspires to be a global leader in sustainability, leading by example, to impede climate change, to set standards for sustainable growth across global value chains, and to improve the well-being of people worldwide, securing a healthy planet for future generations. So again, a definition of sustainability. So the Green Deal's ambitions, what do? They aim at decarbonizing the energy sector, making buildings more energy efficient, supporting EU industries to become global leaders through innovation, and making available healthier forms of private and public transport. The Commission, in fact, has warned that if we do nothing, we risk seeing some 400,000 premature deaths per year due to air pollution. This is in Europe. 90,000 deaths due to heat waves in Europe. 660 additional asylum applications per year, and 16% of species at risk of extinction, and this due to temperature increases. The Commission also foresees that if we do nothing to curtail climate change, droughts can be expected in Southern Europe. 2.2 million people will be exposed to coastal inundation, and 500,000 people will be at risk of river flooding every year. We saw what happened this year, indeed, just a few months ago in Germany and here in Belgium, where rivers broke their banks and flooded many regions, causing quite a lot of damage. So from an economic point of view, estimations are equally alarming. I won't go down that road because time is short. But this said, already in the EU, greenhouse gases have decreased by 23% over the last 30 years. And the economy has grown at the same time by 61%. So there is a track record which is quite impressive, and the region is not starting from zero. But amongst others, the Green Deal focuses on achieving zero pollution by reducing the use of chemicals, implementing an ambitious climate law, targeting clean energy, a circular economy action plan, an industrial strategy, increased research and innovation, and of course a biodiversity strategy. But among all of these things, from a food and drink industry standpoint, one aspect of the Green Deal is of particular importance, and you mentioned it earlier, the farm to fork strategy. So the farm to fork strategy is a cornerstone of the Green Deal. It aims at achieving a resilient and sustainable food system for the EU. And it has many goals, including ensuring sustainable food production, ensuring food security, facilitating a shift to more healthy and sustainable diets, and of course, to reducing food loss and food waste. So all across the chain, from the farm right down to the fork in our kitchens, the strategy will have an impact. So even if today the goals are aspirational, they're not mandatory, legislation is being prepared and is coming down the track. So at farm level, the aspirations include achieving by 2030 a 50% reduction in the use of chemical pesticides, a 20% reduction in the use of fertilizers, a 50% reduction in the use of antimicrobials for farmed animals, and an increase in agricultural land under organic farming to 25% of the total. Now that's a huge step, because today the average is 7.58%. For food processing industries in the EU, implementing the farm to fork strategy will mean increasing investment, investing more in improving our environmental and nutritional footprints, improving the circularity of our products and our packaging, promoting more sustainable consumption behaviors, working more closely upstream with the agricultural sector to support more sustainable agricultural practices, and minimizing food losses and waste. While, of course, all of this at the same time, we have to ensure safe, affordable, convenient, and enjoyable food is available to consumers in the EU and indeed elsewhere. So given that the European food industry uses more than 70% of the agricultural materials grown on European farms, no industry is more vulnerable to climate change and environmental risk than our own food industry. We depend 100% on the availability of good quality agricultural materials in sufficient quantity at the right price. And of course, these depend in turn on environmental sustainability and on climate. So any external factors that upset the balance, such as drought or extreme temperatures, can cause huge disturbances across the entire food chain. The industry is therefore committed to adapting its manufacturing processes and to making its production lines more sustainable in order to reduce its environmental footprint. So we in our organization played a leading role in the establishment of a new code, what is called the Code of Conduct for Responsible Food Business and Marketing Practices. So what is this? The Code of Conduct is the farm to fork strategy in action. What we have done is we have agreed across the food chain, but particularly in the center of the chain, to commit to several different actions. So the code, in fact, was set up by the Commission. The members of the task force that set up this code were NGOs of all sorts, operators from across the chain, and the consumer organization, and of course us, the industry. We chaired the task force that established 7 aspirational objectives, 12 aspirational targets, and more than 50 indicative actions. So this is about action. It's not all words, it's all about action. So the aspirational objectives are the following. The first one is that we need to produce sustainable diets for all European consumers that are healthy and balanced. We have to prevent and reduce food loss and waste. We must aim at a climate neutral food chain in Europe by 2050. We must optimize the circularity of our food chain and create a resource efficient chain in Europe. Another objective is sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment and decent work, sustainable value creation across the food chain, and sustainable sourcing in food chains. So these are the objectives. Now, as part of those objectives, of course, there are several targets. Targets, for example, under the first objective is creating a food environment that makes it easier to choose healthy foods and sustainable diets. Other objectives are a 50% reduction per capita food waste at retail and consumer level by 2030, and et cetera, reducing net emissions from our operations, contributing to the 55% greenhouse gas emission reduction by 2030, improve sustainability of packaging, striving for all packaging towards circularity by 2030, et cetera, et cetera. The list is long, so I won't go through them all, but it is hugely ambitious and quite a challenge. I think that maybe at this event next year or in 2 years' time, we might be able to tell you a bit more about how we're actually achieving these targets. But it is a very, very important action. So the Farm to Fork and its Code of Conduct was flagged at the recent United Nations Food Systems Summit. The European Commission is sort of broadcasting it worldwide. We are accompanying them, sometimes virtually. Obviously, today in COVID times, it's difficult to travel everywhere, but they have started meeting up with South American countries, with the US, of course, with countries in Asia. We are going along with them to introduce the code, to talk about the code. And also, I think something that's worth highlighting is the fact that in order to ensure that Europe is not the only place where an effort is being made, and so in order to keep a level playing field, the Commission, when it is negotiating bilateral trade agreements with other countries, it is inserting an article on doing things more sustainably. So it's part of, for example, the ongoing negotiations with Australia and New Zealand. And so this will be the case, I think, for all our bilateral agreements in the future. So I hope I've answered more or less what's
Yes.
your question?
Yes, of
And
course.
I'm available if anyone wants any questions. I will share the my presentation, which unfortunately you could not see, immediately after this, and you can share it with the participants. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, as you mentioned, to have a resilient and sustainable food system, we need completely a different approach, and farm-to-fork strategy is very important at this point. And I would also like to ask the importance of local production, because the pandemic has reminded us that the importance of food safety and sustainability, and this. At this point, the local production and supporting local producers became more and more important for food sustainability. And you also mentioned the waste of food is too much. 1 in 9 people are starving, malnourished. On the other hand, nearly 50% of all food produced globally is going to waste. So, what are your comments on the importance of local productions and local producers, and this sustainable solution for the food that is wasted every day?
Thank you. So I think in our industry, there is room for everything. We must find a balance between local and global. There are many products that we cannot get locally. I think also local is not always the most sustainable solution, but certainly we must look into doing locally when we can more production, so and more sourcing. It's important, I think, at the same time to ensure that whatever we're doing sustainably, so we can actually go global, but in a more sustainable way. So local, in my view, is not the only solution, but certainly it's an important one, and we should keep a balance. That's concerning local. Concerning food waste, indeed, it is a crime. In my view, it's a crime, this food waste. We are doing what we can here in Food Drink Europe. We have actually developed a toolkit for our members. There are some 300,000 food manufacturing companies in Europe. 99% of them are small and medium-sized. So what we have done for all of our members is created a toolkit which helps them to stick to what we call the waste pyramid. So obviously, first of all, food should be fed to people. If it's not people, it should be animals. If it's not animals, it should go into the bioeconomic industry. And only at the very end of the pyramid should it be put into tips, landfill. So that's one thing we have done. I saw an interesting thing yesterday. I was actually reserving a restaurant, because restaurants are now open here in Brussels. I was reserving a restaurant. It was a sushi restaurant, and I saw that in their menu, they said for every sushi that's not consumed, there's a €1 charge. So if you fill up your plate with sushis and you sit down and start to eat, you leave 2 of them on your plate, you're going to have to pay €2 for that. So I thought, this is an interesting, I'm not trying to encourage everyone to do this, but you can see that it has become something that people are more and more aware of. What we do as well here in Food Drink Europe is we encourage our members, and some of them are amongst the biggest companies in the world, to share their products which are coming to the end of the best before date with food banks. So we work very closely with food banks so that this food is not wasted. Labeling is important. People must understand that best before does not mean it's bad afterwards. Best before is a quality marking and not a health marking. So there's lots of things we can do to ensure that consumers understand. All these deals like buy 2 get 1 free, we have to look at all of those as well in supermarkets. So there is a lot of things we can do. We're starting on that path. We started on that path several years ago. We did a brochure on what we called Every Crumb Counts. So you can find that on our internet, on our web page. And it also is a toolkit of how to reduce waste in our factories, but also in our homes. So I would encourage people to look at that as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Frewen. As you say, we need a collective effort to change this situation, and in this, during all this time, all companies and individuals have a major role to play. I thank you very much for your valuable comments, and hope to see you next year at the same summit, just to see the results of the COP summit and everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will now close down my screen and listen into the rest. Thank you very much for your invitation.
Thank you very much.